The Halo TV series is a set of 9 episodes that takes place in an alternate Halo timeline that the directors call the Silver Timeline, which means that the series does not follow the ordinary events of the Halo games as we are so used to, and to be honest, after watching the series finale, I really don't know what to make of it. While I did enjoy a lot of what I saw, there does seem to be a lot that I really didn't enjoy. What going on guys, Quand here, and welcome to my review on the Halo TV series by Paramount. So, what's the story? While on a mission with the UNSC, Master Chief and Silver Team uncover a Covenant excavation site and find a form of artifact, which the Master Chief has some form of symbiotic relationship to. After touching the artifact, it shows him flashbacks of his childhood and he starts remembering that he was abducted, and goes on a mission to try and find out where he came from and who he is. He is also introduced to an AI called Cortana, but Chief doesn't trust her to begin with, but slowly warms to her when she helps him against Halsey's plans. Elsewhere, the UNSC finds out there's a second artifact, which is the second half of what Silver Team took from the Covenant. Unfortunately, the UNSC lose the second half of the artifact to the Covenant, but do find an undercover Covenant spy called Marquis, who tricks Chief into showing her the location of the artifact that the UNSC have. When this plan succeeds, Chief and Silver Team embark on a mission to find the location where Marquis took the artifact to stop the Covenant from finding Halo. So I suppose the first question I should be asking myself is, did I enjoy this series or not? And to be honest and direct as possible, I don't really know. As I said at the start, I enjoyed a lot of what I saw in this series, but there was just so much I really didn't like. So let's start with small details that in the grand scheme of things really don't matter. First of all, making Jacob and Miranda Keyes black instead of white. Now, I just want to say, before I carry on, they are both amazing actors who played the parts really well, and I'm not saying this because of their skin colour. However, what was the need of making this change in this series? It seems a lot in this series in general that Paramount is making little changes to things just to make this show as far out as possible from the normal timeline when it isn't needed. Getting rid of the elite armor rank system was another one. For the most part, the elites use the same armor, which means you can't really distinguish their ranks, which again seems to me like they're just going and being as different as they possibly can from the normal timeline to show that this isn't canon, but while keeping certain things in similarity to the Halo games just to show that it is Halo at the same time, which I think is really weird. The story was something else I wasn't a fan of either, and it wasn't even the parts with the artifacts and things surrounding that story. It was Chief trying to find out the truth about his past. It was just hammered too hard where it wasn't needed. I wanted to see more about the artifact and how it works and what it leads to and why the Covenant might want it. This series has the same effect on me that Halo 4 does, where the objectives of the story are the wrong way round. Have more focus on the artifact, the Forerunners, Halsey's knowledge on them and details surrounding it, and why the Covenant might want it. Then do parts in those episodes with Chief trying to find the truth about his past and why he is the way he is. That to me would have made the series so much more enjoyable for me to watch. And it's mainly the reason why that would make it enjoyable is because it's different, a different timeline and it's not canon, but it still follows the mythos that Halo was created with the sci-fi things, with the Forerunners and the Halo and all of the stuff around like Halsey and how she knows so much about it. It keeps it similar to what we know to be Halo, but also keep it different at the same time. That's what I wanted from this series, not something that's so far out of what Halo is supposed to be. That's what really annoys me about the story in this series. I saw something that somebody said on social media recently as of writing this script, that the Halo TV show is a really good story if it was non-Halo and just its own thing. A super soldier suffering from PTSD about his past, while trying to find an artifact that could lead to the extinction of humanity if their enemies find it. But because it's in a Halo universe, it doesn't work, and to be honest, I'm inclined to agree. An example I would refer to is Transformers Prime, which is my favourite part of the Transformers media ever, personally. This series runs in its own timeline to any other Transformers media, whether it be the Michael Bay movies or the classic cartoons. However, they keep so much of the series similar to the Transformers like mythos and like universe. Many people know it and love it, and while it may be different, and not really make any sense or at all any sense with other timelines, it's still distinct to Transformers, and you can love it because it's Transformers and not something that's not Transformers trying to be Transformers. So now on to the Master Chief, being one of my big problems with this show. And well, where do I start? I don't even know. How about this? This guy is Chief, but so is this guy. This is the Master Chief, but also this is the Master Chief. Here you see the Master Chief. Here you also see Master Chief. Here is the Chief, and here is also the Chief. Do you see where I'm going with this? This version of Chief is not the Chief that we know. And no matter how many excuses from anyone saying that it's not canon, the silver timeline, etc., this is not the Master Chief. If you're going to make a series about something that even if it's not canon, you need to at least make it seem like it's the same thing, even though nothing makes sense from the original, which is fine if it's not canon, but you still need to make the main character of the series something that we know from other media. Like I mentioned about Transformers Prime, it's completely different from any other timeline, but Optimus Prime being the main character is exactly as you would find him in any other kind of Transformers media, whether it be the movies, whether it be the classic cartoons, anything. He's exactly the same as you would know Optimus Prime to be. Master Chief in this series is so anti-Master Chief, I don't even know. Chief in this series is so detached from the Spartan that we know and love from the games, it actually hurts to call this guy the Master Chief because he is not. Now, I do just want to say right in the middle of my little rant here that, and before I continue, that I'm not smearing hate on Pablo Schreiber. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I apologize if I completely butchered his name, because with the script he was given and the story he was given, he does a damn good job at acting the role. So it's not his fault that he got given a script to act out that is this bad. Now, I wasn't hugely against seeing Chief remove his helmet in this series because it's not canon. I could just use my own headcanon to decide whether or not this is what Chief looks like in the games under the helmet. But he spends half the series with not just his helmet off, but with no armor on. And I know the point is to try and show Chief reconnecting with humanity and his humanity side, but regardless of what you think about Halo 4, 5 and Infinite, they do an excellent job of showing Chief's human side without him removing his helmet, and that's what I so wanted to see in this series. The scenes where Chief doesn't have any armor on and just have him walk around with just his undersuit on, or anything but his armor, it's so annoying and so frustrating because I really so badly want to believe that this guy is the Master Chief that I play as for the majority of the Halo games, but he's just not. If they had the scenes where the scenes where Chief was walking around with no armor on at all, and just had him walk around with nothing but nothing, everything but his helmet was off, and he was carrying that around, that's completely different. I'd actually vastly preferred that to what we've got, because although he hasn't got a helmet on, you can see his face, you can tell by his armor that he is just Chief. There are some episodes where he doesn't wear his armor at all, and if I watch those episodes individually as they are, with no other context from any other episodes, I wouldn't know that's the Master Chief, and I think that's the point of why I've got such a gripe with the way Chief is in this series. Something else I really didn't like in the show is Quan, mainly because at this point her character, where we started the show, we saw her character in the trailers and I thought, oh interesting, Chief and Silver Team is going to have a human companion that's going to help them find the artifact. And that's what it seemed like from the first and second episode. But nope, Chief left her with Soren and created a separate little story, which I don't even remember what it was, and those are the parts I just didn't watch. The entire episode surrounding Quan and Soren I just skipped because I just didn't want to watch it. I watched about halfway through and I skipped through it because it was boring. And I hope we just abandon that entire story for Season 2 when it releases. Another problem I have is Silver Team, with the exception of Kai, which I will get to later. Because for two characters who have grown up with the Chief through his life, who do everything together and are super close, they don't really have anything to do with the Chief, or what he's up to. Ritz and Vanek seem like they're just soldiers who are blindly following orders, as if they have like clone inhibitor chips in their heads and don't want anything to do with the chief while he's gone rogue, which even Kai was able to see through before she removed her implant. So why didn't the other two? What I would have loved to see is that all members of Silver Team take out their implants and try and help Chief, but because he is unaware they've taken out their implants, he avoids them and tries to solve his problems on his own. That would be so much better and would have left them with so much more involvement, because Natasha Kolzak and Bentley Kalu, again, I hope I'm saying their names right, but I apologise if not, but they are not bad actors by any means, and for the limited time that they have on screen, and basically the entire final episode where Vanek and Ritz are trying to arrest Chief, you can see they both physically struggle between what they think is the truth and what the actual truth is, and it's so good. And it's one of the best non-action scenes in this whole series, and I just wish we could have seen more of it. There does seem to be a common theme here though, that the actors in the series are by no means bad. In fact, most of them are really, really good and play the parts they're given incredibly well. But because the script and the story they were given was so bad, it shadows their talent, which I think is a real shame. So, now on to the parts that I did like about this series. Firstly, the art style is really good, from the environments to the design of the Covenant to the designs of the UNSC armor, with the exception of Elite armor, which like I said before doesn't follow rank distinction, but the actual designs of the Covenant are so accurate to the game, from the Grunts to the Jackals to the Brutes, which were actually a nice surprise to see, and the Elites. Sometimes though I do feel that the CGI was a little bit off, but it worked well enough for me to enjoy it. The Spartan Arm was also quite clearly taken from Halo Reach for Silver Team, which I thought was a nice touch, and it looked really good, although I would have liked them to have actual distinct coloration like the Chief does, rather than just accents, so a bit more colourful like Halo 5 does, just to show that they are different. Marquis was also an interesting addition to the series, a human raised by the Covenant and not known any different, but then questioned her upbringing when she's back with humanity and people like her. However, I do think it happened a bit quick. The only thing that allowed her to rethink her outlook was Chief and nothing else. Like, years of Covenant upbringing just washed away because of one man. I do also think that it was a shame that she died at the end of the series, because I would have really loved to see more development between her and Chief, especially see that they're linked some way or one way or another to the artifact. I'd have really liked to see why they are linked and how all that happened and why they're connected. I did for the most part enjoy Halsey in this series, but she got on my nerves a little bit near the end. She started off as her smart, cocky self because she's so much more intelligent than many at the UNSC, and she's so hyper-focused on her work that she pushes everyone around her away, which is very similar to her in the games. But near the end, she keeps getting these little gotcha moments, where she's always one step ahead of the UNSC, and anything they would try and do to her, she would always be one step ahead, which the first couple of times was cool to see, just how smart she is, but it got annoying by the end because it just seemed like she had an unbreakable shell around her, and it always seemed a bit too predictable. I also enjoyed the level of blood and gore in this series. Granted, it did come down a little bit later on in the series, but the first episode and the middle episode with big battle scenes and violence on the screen was just insane. And that's what I love to see in Halo, the brutality of what happens when you mix humanity, aliens and armoured super soldiers together, which is just total destruction. Now on to what I think is my personal favourite part of this show, which is Kai. Mainly because she came across to me as a character with the most natural character development, and here's what I mean by that. Chief removed his implant because of what he saw from the artifact, so you can argue that he was influenced by an alien force, but Kai did it with her own free-thinking mind without any alien influences, and then struggled with the consequences of that, both positive and negative. Positive being able to think more clearly and more like a normal human, but also negative by having her own teammates and friends, essentially family, whom she has grown up with, turn on her for questioning what she has been taught. It's kind of like a message for life. If you stick your head above the parapet and think differently from the masses, you gain the advantage of being able to think more clearly and possibly rationally, but you get the disadvantage of people thinking you're crazy or wrong or you're a bad person for questioning to what they've been taught being correct. So that's my review on the Halo series. Like I said, I don't really hate this show at all, and there are many things I love about this series, but there were just so many parts that I really didn't like about this show, and they're such big problems, some of them, that I just can't bring myself to say that this is a good show. Which is a real shame, because some of the good parts of the series are so enjoyable. You know, the action for the most part is really good. Most of the actors play the parts they were given incredibly well. They were just directed by people who just don't understand Halo and what Halo means to people, and it's just so annoying. So anyway, that is about what I have time for in this video here. I'd like to thank you all very much for watching. If you did enjoy, don't forget to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button for more awesome gaming review type content. If you have any other suggestions or opinions on the Halo TV series that you think that I've missed, or you want to share your own opinions, maybe you agree or disagree with what I've said in this video, leave in the comment section down below, because I'd love to see your opinion on them. So hope you guys have enjoyed, and I shall see you all later. Bye.